Folks, grab a cold one and settle in, because if your HOA ever felt like a pain, you haven't met the nightmare that swallowed Lakeside Haven Estates whole. Picture it, a gleaming slice of Florida suburbia right outside Tampa, with those cookie-cutter McMansions hugging a sparkling man-made lake, palm trees trimmed to perfection, and every lawn looking like it was mowed by a damn robot. Kids rode bikes in the cul-de-sacs, retirees waved from golf carts, and the community center hosted potlucks that smelled like apple pie and passive aggression. On the surface, it was pure Americana bliss. Underneath, a web of bylaws thicker than the IRS code, whispered rumors, and one woman who treated the place like her personal kingdom. Enter Luke Harlan. 25 years in Navy intelligence, chasing ghosts from the Persian Gulf to the South China Sea, then a side hustle in forensic accounting that paid the bills until the tech bubble popped. All he wanted was quiet retirement. He cashed out what was left, bought the lakefront house at 17, Anchor Lane with its private dock, and towed in the Vigilant, his 33-foot vintage patrol boat, a steel and diesel beauty he'd snagged at a Navy auction for peanuts. She wasn't just transportation, she was his rolling memorial. Plaques for fallen shipmates, faded photos taped inside the cabin, the faint smell of diesel and duty. After everything he'd lost overseas, she was the last piece of who he used to be. The moving truck hadn't even left when the HOA packet slammed onto his porch like a declaration of war. 87 pages of rules, 69 prohibited activities, and Rule 27 highlighted in aggressive neon yellow. No watercraft exceeding 30 feet in length. The Vigilant measured 33. Luke chuckled at first, classic HOA overreach. But the Tuesday night meeting at the community center felt less like a welcome wagon and more like a tribunal. Meredith Langley presided from the podium, blonde bob sharper than a guillotine blade, pearl necklace gleaming under the fluorescent lights, navy blazer that probably cost more than Luke's first uniform. She smiled like a shark in lipstick. Mr. Harlan, welcome to our little paradise. I trust you've reviewed our watercraft policy. Her voice dripped honey, but her eyes were ice. Luke stood, calm as ever. Ma'am, I bought the property specifically for the dock. The boat's pre-existing, part of my service history. Surely one exception. Oh, sweetie, Meredith cut in with that signature Karen laugh, light and lethal. We simply can't set precedents. It would be unfair to everyone else. Property values, you understand? We all sacrifice for the greater good here. The room murmured approval, neighbors nodding like trained seals. One guy in the back actually clapped. Luke sat back down, jaw tight, but said nothing. Procedure first. Anger later. That night under the dock lights, he found the first red flag. 2 of the Vigilant's main mooring lines had been sliced halfway through. A single storm, and she'd be adrift, a multi-ton liability. Tucked under a windshield wiper was a note on HOA stationery. Some vessels belong in museums, not neighborhoods. A concerned community member. The ink matched the highlighter exactly. Amateur, but deliberate. The official notice arrived at dawn. Violation letter dated the day before the meeting. 72 hours to relocate or $250 daily fines. Luke documented everything. Photos, timestamps, the works. He wasn't some hothead. He was a man who'd spent decades untangling bigger lies. But the small cuts started coming fast. New security cameras sprouted along the shared fence line, all angled straight at his dock. Neighborhood watch patrols suddenly materialized, their routes suspiciously looping past his house every evening like clockwork. Meredith called it fostering community spirit at the next email blast. Then the financial squeeze. A surprise $950 dock safety retrofit assessment that somehow only applied to waterfront properties with oversized vessels. A $1,400 lake ecosystem study requiring only Luke's participation and payment. Each invoice came with the polite threat of liens. Neighbors started crossing the street when they saw him, whispering about that new guy causing trouble. One afternoon at the community mailbox, Meredith cornered him with her perfect smile. Luke, dear, we're all just trying to keep things harmonious. Why make this difficult? Surely a man of your background understands rules are rules. Her pause on background was pure venom wrapped in sugar. Luke smiled back, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. Absolutely, Meredith. And I'm sure everyone here would love full transparency on where those assessment dollars actually go. Her perfect bob twitched. Just a flicker, but he caught it. That was the moment he started digging quietly. No rage, no scenes, just the slow, patient collection of receipts. Because in his world, patience wasn't weakness. It was the loaded gun. The community looked so peaceful from the outside. Kids laughing at the playground, flags waving in perfect synchronization, everyone pretending the HOA fines were just for the greater good. But Luke could feel the rot underneath. And Meredith Langley? She was the queen sitting on a throne of other people's money, terrified someone might notice. Weeks blurred into a siege. Luke kept his head down, mowed his lawn to regulation height, even swapped out his American flag for the HOA-approved size after a passive-aggressive note about visual clutter. But inside, he was building a case file thicker than the bylaws. He'd learned long ago that the best weapon against bullies was their own paperwork. Former board treasurer George Finnegan reached out via a burner email. Smart move in a neighborhood wired for surveillance. They met at a noisy diner 10 miles away. George, a retired CPA with shaking hands, slid a USB across the table. She fired me 6 months after she took over. Said I was resistant to progress. Luke, the books are cooked. Phantom contractors, inflated invoices. Sunshine Landscaping got $18,000 last quarter for work that never happened. The address is a P.O. box in Orlando. George's voice dropped. Meredith drives a leased Mercedes, sends her kid to that $30,000 private academy, and just renovated the pool house. Legit income? Maybe $120,000 combined with her husband's contracting gigs. Math doesn't add up. Luke ran the numbers that night on his secure laptop. The lifestyle screamed double the declared income. Then retired teacher Diane Holloway, sweet lady who'd lived there 14 years, slipped him a handwritten ledger while pretending to admire his rose bushes. Families don't just leave paradise, hon. They get driven out. The list was damning. The Patels fined into foreclosure after asking for financials. The Johnsons hounded over architectural violations until they sold at a loss. Pattern was crystal clear: question the money, become the target. The harassment leveled up. A black SUV with tinted windows nearly T-boned Luke at the stop sign on Lakeview Drive. He swerved, heart pounding, but the plate was fake. Classic intimidation. That same week, the special assessments doubled. Another $2,200 emergency shoreline stabilization fee aimed solely at his dock. Liens threatened. Neighbors now openly avoided him at the community pool. One woman actually clutched her pearls when he said hello. But Luke stayed ice cold. He started using an old directional mic from his service days, listening from a public park bench at night. Meredith's voice carried on the breeze one Thursday. Tony, the new guy's asking questions. Ex-Navy, forensic accountant. He's not backing off. A pause. Then panic crept in. No, I can't just handle it like last time. My son's college tuition, you promised protection. The name Tony clicked. Tony the Fix Rossi, local contractor whose bids always won HOA jobs. Luke's got twisted. This wasn't just a power-tripping Karen. This was a woman drowning in debt to a shark. The real gut punch came 2 nights later. Luke had parked discreetly near the marina when he heard the splash. A figure in dark clothes slipped into the water under his dock. He didn't move, procedure first. At 2:47 a.m., the figure climbed out, shivering, and drove away in a familiar Honda. Meredith. The next morning, the marina manager called at 6:52 a.m., voice cracking. Mr. Harlan the Vigilant. She's gone under. Looks like a fuel line failure or something. Luke stood on the dock staring at the tip of his boat protruding from 15 feet of murky water like a tombstone. Grief hit like a wave. Memories of shipmates, nights on watch, the one piece of his old life he'd clung to. But beneath the grief burned cold fury. This wasn't an accident. And Meredith knew it. The salvage crew raised her 3 days later. The dive master surfaced shaking his head. Deliberate. Knife cuts on the fuel line. Drain plug loosened with tools. Amateur hour, but intentional. Lodged in the wreckage, a torn piece of yellow rubber glove. The same brand Meredith's gardening photos on Facebook showed her wearing last week. Insurance called it vandalism. Luke called it war. The boat sinking should have broken him. Meredith showed up at the dock the next morning with a tray of sympathy muffins and that Oscar-worthy concerned neighbor face. "Luke, I am just devastated. These things happen with old vessels, right? Mechanical failure," the marina said. Her slip was tiny but deadly. She mentioned mechanical failure before any official report. Luke just nodded politely. "Appreciate the thought, Meredith. Funny how the only person who knew the exact cause before the divers was you." Her smile froze for half a second. That night Luke's mic caught the real conversation. Meredith on the phone, voice cracking. "Tony, it's done. The boat's gone. But he's still digging. He has copies of the landscaping invoices." Tony's reply was ice. "You have 48 hours to make him disappear, sweetheart, or your son's tuition gets recalled permanently. Remember who owns you now." Luke had his smoking gun recording. But he needed more. He cornered the young HOA accountant Tim Bridges outside a coffee shop. Tim went white. "I can't talk. She has leverage, recordings, sign blanks I thought were routine. She filled them later. Ghost companies, payments to Rossi Construction that don't exist. Over $720,000 in 18 months. If I talk, I go down as the fall guy." Tim cracked 2 days later. With his help, Luke copied the server files during a maintenance window. The numbers were staggering. Funds funneled through fake contractors straight into Rossi-controlled shell companies, then laundered into rental properties under Meredith's maiden name. Classic mob playbook. The twist hit like lightning one rainy afternoon. While reviewing the files, Luke noticed a pattern. Every family that had questioned finances had been forced out except one. Old treasurer John Maxwell, who died in a car accident right before Meredith took full control. Luke dug deeper, brake lines cut. John had been his shipmate on the USS Valiant 20 years ago. The same ship the Vigilant was named after. This wasn't random. This was personal. That same day, a neighbor's new doorbell camera footage arrived anonymously, grainy but clear. Meredith in wetsuit at 2:47 a.m., knife in hand, slipping under the Vigilant. The sender? Meredith's own terrified teenage son, who'd found the glove fragment in her trash and pieced it together. "She's scared of Tony," the kid texted. "But what she did to you, it's wrong." Luke now had video proof of the sabotage, plus financials, plus the phone recording. But he waited. The HOA monthly meeting was coming, the perfect stage. He quietly rallied the victims: Diane, George, the Patels, the Johnsons, 8 families ready to speak. They rehearsed questions designed to force admissions the hidden FBI mics. Yes, he'd already tipped off Agent Miles, would capture on record. The night before the meeting, Meredith's voice on the mic again. "Tony, the meeting tomorrow. He's bringing evidence. What do we do?" Tony laughed. "Discredit him. Make him look crazy. My guy will be in the back row. If that fails, well, accidents happen in parking lots too." Luke smiled in the dark. "Bring it." The community center was standing room only, 140 people crammed into a space built for 80. Tension crackled like static. Luke sat in the front row, calm, folder on his lap. Meredith took the podium, pearls gleaming, voice steady but hands trembling just enough. "Before we start, we must address disturbing behavior from one resident. Mr. Harlan has been spreading baseless accusations, even after his unfortunate boat incident. Some suggest he may have staged it for insurance. We have concerned neighbors willing to speak." A planted woman stood. "Isn't it true your old accounting firm collapsed amid scandals?" The room buzzed. Meredith smirked faintly. Luke stood slowly. "Ma'am, that's convenient disinformation planted yesterday. Check the timestamps on those online posts. My firm closed honorably. But since we're talking evidence," he clicked the projector. Invoices flashed. Sunshine Landscaping paid $22,000 for work at a non-existent address. "Meredith, care to explain why the community paid for ghost services while your pool house got a $140,000 renovation?" Gasps rippled. Diane rose. "I tracked every dime. She's stolen $720,000. Here are my ledgers." George followed. "I tried to audit and got voted out in a week." One by one the allies stood, stories of fines, harassment, ruined lives. The room turned from murmurs to angry shouts. Meredith's composure cracked. "This is a witch hunt. You're all being manipulated by a bitter veteran who..." Luke hit play. Her own voice filled the hall. Tony, the boat's handled. But he's still asking about the money. Then Tony's chilling reply. Make him disappear or your son pays the price. The room exploded. Meredith collapsed against the podium, mascara running. You don't understand. Tony Rossi owns me. He threatened my boy. I never wanted to steal, but he said he'd hurt my family. That was the trigger. From the back row, a burly man, Tony's enforcer, started shouting to create chaos. But it backfired. Let her finish, the crowd roared. Meredith pointed at the enforcer. He's here. Tony sent him. FBI agent Rachel Miles's voice cut through like a blade. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Nobody move. Undercover agents rose from the seats, badges flashing. The enforcer and 2 plants were cuffed before they could blink. Meredith was next, wrists behind her back, pearls clacking as she sobbed. I cooperated, please. Agent Miles announced. Meredith Langley, you're under arrest for embezzlement, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit vandalism. Tony Rossi and his network are being taken down simultaneously across 3 states. $14 million stolen from 12 HOAs. Your cooperation just saved your son. The room erupted in stunned applause mixed with tears. Luke stood there, the weight of 2 decades of service finally lifted. Justice wasn't loud explosions overseas. Sometimes it was a suburban meeting room and a recording that brought down an empire. The arrests turned Lakeside Haven into a media circus for a week. News vans, flashing lights, neighbors in shock. Meredith was led away in cuffs, her perfect blonde bob a mess, screaming about misunderstandings until the doors closed. Tony, the fix, Rossi got life without parole for the multi-state racket and the murder of John Maxwell, whose accident brakes had been cut on Tony's orders. The enforcer took 28 years. Meredith, thanks to full testimony and the credible threats to her son, got 12 years instead of life. The community didn't crumble. They rebuilt. Old board dissolved overnight. Diane Holloway became the new president, sharp, fair, zero tolerance for nonsense. New bylaws mandated independent audits twice a year, full financial transparency online, and monthly town halls where anyone could ask anything without fear of retaliation. The old concerned community member notes stopped cold. Luke's insurance paid out, plus a chunk of recovered HOA funds. The vigilant rose from the depths better than before. Community volunteers helped sand and paint her in a weekend of cathartic labor. They rechristened her the Sentinel of Justice, with a new plaque honoring John Maxwell and every shipmate who never made it home. She became the neighborhood symbol, docked proudly, open for kids to tour on weekends, a reminder that even in paradise, you fight for what's right. Meredith's son got his scholarship untouched and wrote Luke a quiet thank you letter. The kid was studying engineering now, said he wanted to build systems that couldn't be gamed. Meredith from prison started taking paralegal courses, helping other inmates navigate the system, and her letters through counsel carried real remorse. Healing wasn't instant, but it was real. Luke himself? He started a small pro bono consulting firm, Harlan Integrity Services, helping other HOAs spot fraud before it poisoned the water. And yes, he finally met someone, Dr. Evelyn Reed, the community counselor who'd helped everyone process the trauma. Shared sunsets on the dock, quiet talks about second chances. Life after the storm. 3 months later the phone rang. Another HOA president from the next county over. Mr. Harlan, we found your name in old notes from a treasurer who died suspiciously. Same patterns, ghost invoices, pressure on boat owners. We think we need your help. Luke looked out at the Sentinel rocking gently under the Florida sun, community kids laughing on her deck. He smiled, the first real one in months. Tell me everything. I'll be there tomorrow. Because here's the truth, folks, the quiet wars aren't fought on distant seas. They're fought in backyard docks and community centers, over lawn heights and boat lengths and the soul of your own neighborhood. And sometimes when your boat goes under, it's not the end. It's the anchor that pulls an entire community back to the surface, stronger, wiser, and finally free. The fight for integrity? It never really ends. But now at least we know how to win it. And that, neighbors, is the most satisfying plot twist of all.